All right, everybody, welcome on in to NorCal Sports Network. Wednesday night, October 2nd, and 3 teams have been eliminated from the playoffs. And tomorrow we got a Game 3 decider between the New York Mets and the Milwaukee Brewers. Should be exciting. That should probably be in prime time, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Probably another 5:30, 6 o'clock start our time.
Yep.
And that'll be fun. But the Orioles, 10 straight losses in the playoffs. They're eliminated. The Royals, the American League Central Division, known as maybe the worst division in baseball for the last few years, has 3 teams advancing and a 4th that was the runner-up in the Twins for the playoffs. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
So,
however, could that happen without my Chicago White Sox?
Oh man, I got your Sox hat right up there, man. I got it in the order of the standing. I pulled some hats. I had some hats. I need to put those.
I don't think that little stand for the White Sox is low enough. You might need to put it somewhere below the camera there. My God.
Oh man, that was a rough year.
It was nice after about 20 games. I'm like, oh, we have nothing to do here. You could just get on with your life.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I went to one game this year. They had a lead, and apparently that made me somebody who saw something special. So it was brutal.
Even though they have the most losses in modern day history, they do not have the worst losing percentage. The Mets and 62 still own that.
I think they're going to fly a pennant or a banner off of that at whatever the hell they call Comiskey Park now.
Yeah. So I'm throwing the Tiger hat on just because I love the underdog, and we'll
respect. I love Jason Benetti, former White Sox announcer, now working for the Tigers.
Yeah.
A great guy, good buddy. So, go Tigers.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds for me to say, I grew up in Chicago when the Tigers were still in the AL East. I never built the amicus the way that like Minnesota Twins. My parents are Royals fans. They grew up around there, so I never really had that much anger for them.
I got their hat right here.
Yeah, they're. I got a lot of text messages today from my family in rural Kansas getting all excited about the Royals. So
I have a hard time rooting for the Royals simply because of the Chiefs. I just don't like the Chiefs, and so nothing against the Royals. I mean, Giants beat them in 14, so
right.
I don't have that hatred factor, but
I only hate one team in professional sports, and it's the Minnesota Twins.
Oh, wow.
Everyone else you can talk me into. I don't hold those biases, especially in the professional realm. Now you drop all that stuff really fast. You just realize it's not worth, getting yourself all worked up. But I still hate the Minnesota Twins. I can't stand them. They ruined my childhood. Every year, end of the season, White Sox and Twins, 4-game series, always at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome. White Sox would be either 3 up or 3 back, and every year they'd end that series having lost 3 or all 4. And they wouldn't go to the playoffs, and that's how I got to ring in my birthday every year. The White Sox lose into the division. So the Twins.
I didn't know there were that many. I didn't know anybody hated the Twins. I thought they were just kind of like a non-franchise, kind of out
this
there.
Guy hates them, can't stand them. Still grit my teeth around them. It's brutal. So
wow.
Yeah, alas, that's my backstory.
Yeah, well, interesting. Well, we got the Dodgers out here to hate, but
I get that. It's kind of the same.
I tell everybody it's hard to have been hating him the last several years just because it's not even a rivalry.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you hate somebody that, you're not even in the same league?
I mean, last 2 years in particular, it has not been a rivalry. I will say, obviously 2021, you get that playoff series that felt real. That felt visceral. That felt like something serious for really the first time in a long time. First time in an honest way since I had been in the Bay, which is now a decade. And then you get to the year after that, it's still carrying over. It's hard. And it's ridiculous that we're now, the thing that I keep going back with the Giants on the big picture is the lowering of expectations. I remember it wasn't that long ago. I mean, certainly 2021, where everyone rightfully thought, hey, the gap is closing. Obviously, the Dodgers got a lot more run on the track here. They're further down the line, but the Giants are gaining some steam here. Stuff is happening and things are aligned. And the last 3 years just showing that was a pipe dream. That was just a flash in the pan is really really disheartening, because you have to have you have to have a little bit of hate in your heart in order to love something seriously.
Right.
You have to have the counter. You can't just be operating on pride in a vacuum. And here's where we're at. I mean, who are the rivals of the Giants right now? It seems to be the fan base versus the fan base. We're turning on each other here, Dom. It's brutal stuff. And I guess I'm here for that exact reason.
Well, you've been taking some heat from some people on Twitter. I thought, you know what? When the first time I saw the article, I go, I got to get Dieter on. Then I started reading some of the tweets that people put out, mainly Hank.
Oh yeah, Hank. Yeah, haven't seen him around in a while, but
yeah. And I thought, oh man. So
he really worst take of the century is saying so. I mean, I'll actually wear it as a badge of honor. I mean, that's impressive. That's all the takes. I won. That's incredible. I was trying to have something smart and interesting, and I don't know if it was. I didn't think it was going to be contrarian. I can't get a read of the market. I'm trying to get something out as fast as possible when the thought comes to me. But to be able to take the worst take of the century, I mean, I'm just so proud, and I can't wait until Hank sends me the trophy.
There we go. So, in question, what we're going to get to, guys, is Dieter, who writes for the San Jose Mercury and is also a voice on KMBR.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, kind of like me.
I'm on tomorrow night. We might be the last run.
Yeah, I kind of had my press pass at the Giants mysteriously yanked and not renewed, and my emails to Matt Chisholm go. Now that they used to go no, Dan, we're not able to do that. Now they're just ignored.
Yeah. Well, kind of like me trying to get in a question at the presser yesterday. No.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So,
it's all fair. That's fair game. That's fair game. As is coming at me for my day. That's fair game.
Right.
I mean,
so here's the take from Dieter.
Yeah. Give him the headline. Let him know.
The title of the headline, the article: Kurtenbach, San Francisco Giants hiring Buster Posey to lead baseball ops reeks of desperation.
Yes, sir.
So let's go through the article, and then we'll have you comment on it.
Sure.
Okay, so here we go. Yes, Farhan Zaidi had to go.
I want to say this is a 1,400-word column. I mean, if we want to read the whole thing, I think you're going to need to make sure that everybody has a subscription, okay? I think we're violating some copyright laws.
Okay,
here.
So
I got a family to feed.
Yeah, okay, we don't want to do that then. Maybe
you want to give. I'd love to hear your Cliff Notes of the column, because obviously I have a million thoughts in my head. I can't even remember what all went in there. What was your takeaway from it?
Well, I tend to agree with you. The fact that it is a bold move, and you mentioned bold is good, or can be good
for sure.
But I thought to myself, the first thing I thought of is there's no way he's going to run the day-to-day operations. There's just no way. Because, I've had Ned Coletti on this show many times, and he's told me stories of him talking to Scott Boras on Christmas Eve over a free agent when they're sitting ready to get down and eat dinner at Christmas dinner. And his wife said, no, you go outside in the freezing cold in Chicago. I can
tell you from just talking to agents, just doing news breaking stuff, which I try to do less of these days, the level of engagement that you have to have with agents and executives and stuff just to have stuff on background these days is so overwhelming. I mean, the notion of running a Major League Baseball team, and that's what this job is. You're the director, president, whatever the hell you want to call it. You're running baseball ops. You're the head honcho. You make the call. You're the president. Okay. And you're the most important person in the organization right now. The idea, and I don't think Buster has any misconceptions about this. The idea that this is something that you can dabble with, that can be a part-time job, is so ignorant and foolhardy that anyone could think that. It's laughable. Now, I don't think Buster thinks that. I think he does understand the challenge that he's taking on, and legitimately all the credit in the world to him for wanting to take on such a significant challenge, because I would argue, and this is the reason Farhan had to go, I would argue that this is the worst situation in baseball. And I just explained my bona fides on the Chicago White Sox here. At least the White Sox have a farm system, right? They suck to high heaven. They're the worst. At least they have top prospects. The Giants have a bottom of the barrel farm system,
right?
A roster that is middling at best, right? And was held together every year by Farhan Zaidi's last-second duct taping and shoestring and gum moves, right? It never got beyond the margins, but those margins were important. They can't bring in big-time free agents. And now apparently have no direction.
I'll get
other than here's Buster. Like, let's see what happens. And I find the whole thing, people are coming at me, and you know what? Again, all fair game. It's a public-facing industry. I have readers. They're allowed to have their opinion. I share mine. I'd like to think mine are more informed, but maybe I learn something new every day. People are coming at me because of Buster. Like, they want to defend Buster. He's a legend. He can do no wrong. He hasn't done anything yet, except for say, I want this job. I think that's a bold move, to say the least, to steal the term from earlier. But again, all the credit in the world for him wanting to take on a challenge like this. Something has been done, though. Like, he hasn't done anything as the director of baseball operations, so I can't tell you if he's a good director of baseball operations or not. I will say that ownership, specifically Greg Johnson, has done something here. And this is what I'm specifically criticizing. And it's my mistake if it doesn't come across as this is criticism of ownership. They have hired someone with no baseball operations experience whatsoever. I'm sorry. Finishing Matt Chapman's contract is not baseball operations experience. I've been on those phone calls with agents as things are getting done. That doesn't make me qualified to run a Major League Baseball team. Okay? I'm not saying that he didn't have a role in that. I'm saying that if that's all that is qualified, there's about 500 members of the media who are more qualified than Buster Posey, because we've been in more of these conversations. They have now fired a director of baseball operations who indeed needed to go. They have fired his number 2, who I don't know what he did, so I can't blame them for firing him. And they have put in somebody who has no experience in this realm, without a plan for who's actually going to do that job. Because as Buster was very clear yesterday, he wants to be a figurehead. He just wants to be the guy who comes in. The fans love him. The players love him. He's a political figure as the director. And there's someone who actually does the job on a day-to-day basis. He wants to be the current day version of Billy Beane. Technically still there, but not actually doing anything. Right? That's what Buster, he's here to bring some good vibes, which the Giants desperately need. But ownership has now handed the reins of a terrible situation that needs immediate rectification in a market that demands success and should demand more success, honestly. We're getting a little soft over here. For an organization that costs $4 billion and should be one of the jewels of professional sports, given now that it has the market completely to itself, the history of the organization, the beautiful ballpark, the wealth of money around here, this should be the biggest of big market teams.
Right.
They have now handed that to someone who does not know what they are doing yet and will have to figure it out on the fly. If it was anybody other than Buster Posey who was at the dais yesterday, if they were to have, say, hired Joe Mauer, another Hall of Fame, well, literally Hall of Fame caliber catcher, who is, by all accounts, very smart and affable and interesting and positive, can bring some good vibes. But if they had hired Joe Mauer, who also has no baseball operations experience, to do that job, and they didn't come up and say, here's his right-hand man, here's how the front office is going to work, here's how, it had no plan, Giants fans would have rioted at 3rd and King. But because it's Buster, there is just this presumption that everything's going to be okay. And you know what? It might be. But I don't take blind faith on anything. The first rule of journalism, if your mom says she loves you, get a second source. Okay? There is no plan here. The plan is they'll figure it out as they go. That is not good enough. That is not how a $4 billion company should be run. That is how I manage a little league team. We'll figure it out as we go. It's not that big a deal. This is a massively big deal. And yes, you had to fire Farhan. But the idea that, we need to bring in Buster as some sort of sign to the fan base to get excited, ridiculous. Ridiculous. Fire Farhan and the fan base will love you. And then, hey, we're going to go with Buster, but come in with a plan. Come in with, here's Buster, here's his number 2, here's his number 3, here's his number 4, here's how the structure is going to work, here's our ideology, here's our philosophy, let's go. Instead, all I got yesterday was someone who, for all the people I've heard in the media saying he's the most prepared guy, and unquestionably he was as a player, I am getting a pretty clear whiff of the Dunning-Kruger effect. He was a great player. That doesn't mean that he's going to be a great executive. He could be, but it doesn't mean he's going to be. And for someone whose hallmark, apparently, to so many who are happy to kiss the ring is, oh, he's so prepared. I saw a guy at the dais yesterday who had nothing prepared to say. And an ownership group, which this is the problem, had no plan other than give it to Buster. Buster said he wanted the ball, so we gave Buster the ball, and we held a press conference to say we gave him the ball. We have no information beyond that.
Well, I do know this from just observing and talking to many different people.
Yeah.
The Giants ownership group really has no idea what they're doing. They really don't. I mean, it's very clear that they did not fire Farhan earlier, especially last year. It was the perfect time to do a reboot and just start over.
Just double down. Hey, you want to bring in Melvin, that's fine. But and I wrote this last year. You can check the transcripts. I said that the Giants were setting themselves up for failure by not having clear-cut extensions with Farhan Zaidi in the moment they signed. The fact that they didn't announce that Farhan Zaidi got an extension, that I had to find out firsthand from Farhan Zaidi that he had been extended, in which case the extension was a little wonky. No, it aligns with Bob. It aligns with Bob. Well, guess what? It no longer aligns with Bob. The fact that the Giants couldn't announce that was all the reason for them to get rid of him last year. Now,
and then you heard the question at the presser yesterday about Bob. Has Bob been given an extension? And it was like, obviously not, because they would have just said, yes, he has. They kind of just said
that would have required a plan. That would have required someone to think about this thing before John Shea, intrepid baseball reporter, who we should all read every day, asked a logical question on, well, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like, you have Bob Melvin up there, has the energy of a kid being forced to testify at his parents' divorce hearing. Just like, it's so weird. And then Buster's, oh, I'm so excited to work with him, and what a great guy. Everyone loves Bob. He's a great guy. Is he a good manager? I don't know. But now, he'll get – none of this has any alignment. None of this has any logic. None of this looks like anyone sat down and said, hey, what's the plan here? And Buster – I can't blame Buster Posey for not having a plan. He's never done this before. He's never been in anything close to this before. So how the hell is he supposed to have an organizational plan for a league that has now currently 5,000 baseball players in the professional ranks? There are 5,000 players on rosters right now in the offseason. Okay? Right. You have 5-6 levels of coaches at every level. You have 200 players on your own roster. You have to scout high school, international, and college, JUCO and major professional. There are how many rounds in the baseball draft? 37, 192? Like, I mean, what are we doing? This is people go, oh, John Lynch did it. The fact that anyone would suggest that these two jobs are the same shows me how they don't understand how big of a job director of baseball operations is. And I know Buster Posey knows how big of a job it is. And again, all the credit in the world for him taking on the challenge. I'm on ownership for not calling Kim Ning, for not calling Mike Chernoff, for not calling anybody with the Atlanta Braves, not calling anybody with the Tampa Bay Rays. How about you give David Forst a call and say, hey, would you like to, you've done a pretty good job over there in Oakland. I know that Oakland has got, you don't want to move to Sacramento, right? You want to come over here and run it. Actually, you're going to have to be Buster's number 2, but you stay in your house. Well, give him a call. Let's get him in the mix. There's so many qualified people who have been running the day-to-day operations, whether they have DP, Y titles or whatever, director of baseball operations titles or assistant GM or GM. But there are people who have been in the mix and have experience and have done deals and have worked the scouting. They have run departments at major league teams with success. Those people weren't even called.
Right. And, the ones that what they've done now is they put Buster at the top. And now you're probably looking at most likely someone who's never had a GM role.
Correct.
I'm guessing, because the GMs that I've talked to, I shouldn't say several, there's a handful that I know and talk to. They want to be the number one guy. They don't want to be the second guy, because if they're got their stamp on it and if they can't do it the way they want to do it,
what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, what are you doing? Exactly.
I'll take it one step further. I put in the column on the day that it happened. They don't have a number 2. Now, I don't disagree with them for firing Pipadilla. I don't know what Pipadilla did. Like, I know that sounds flippant. I've asked a dozen people. No one knows what he did. So Farhan was running the thing by himself. People forget when Farhan took the director of baseball operations job, he ran he didn't have a GM for the first year. He waited a year to hire Scott Harris. Now Scott shows up and then suddenly they win 107 games. Then Scott leaves and they start losing again. Now you're looking at, you're wearing a Detroit Tigers hat for a reason, right? But also Scott Harris, you think about what they're doing in Detroit. They have 2 starters and they're doing bullpen games every day, right? And they're getting by on cheap labor because Javi Baez was the one, expensive guy and they're winning and they have fun and they have excitement. Well, that's also not something that the Giants fan base wants. And Farhan alluded to this in his final press conference when he already knew he was going to be fired. He shows up at the batting cage, shows up in the dugout, starts doing some media, right? He knew he was out. Now, they didn't know that Buster was in, but I had heard last week that they had asked Farhan to stay on to work under Buster. We saw how that turned out. Now, instead of saying, "Oh, you know what? I understand why you
that would have been a disaster."
Why? At least one of those guys has director of baseball operations. Then you fire him a year later because his contract's up.
Yeah, it just seemed like crazy though to have it seems like to me
it's what happened with Bob Myers and Larry Harris.
Yeah. Now
listen,
one of the questions I have for you real quick here is just to address this because I know people. I know you understand this, but address that because a lot of people say, "Well, you're missing the culture change element here."
Sorry, can I swear?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, you can. Go ahead.
What the fuck are people talking about? Like legitimate culture change. Okay, that's fine. You can't divide by 0. There's no culture that's being instilled other than the aura of Buster. I must have missed the part in Buster's Wikipedia page when he was born in a manger and got frankincense and myrrh at his birth. Like, I get that he is an all-time great baseball player, should be in the Hall of Fame, the highest caliber human that you can possibly have. This is no knock on Buster Posey, the man or the player, or yet there's nothing there when it comes to director of baseball operations. I don't know what he is, but I'm not going to give someone with no experience the benefit of the doubt. Why would we do that? Again, if Joe Mauer was hired for this job, people would be like, what the fuck are they doing? Culture change. Yes, people feel good about Buster Posey because Buster Posey makes people feel good. That's not a plan. Vibes are not a plan. Ideas are not a plan. This is the concept of a plan to get political. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. There's nothing here. He didn't have a number.
I'm excited. I'm probably excited just because Farhan's gone. I am a little bit apprehensive with I'm hoping that Buster takes more of an approach of like, I'm overseeing everything, but everybody else underneath me is running the show.
Sure.
And that I'm
just those people.
Right. That's what has to happen. And
by the way, you're now going to be empowering Farhan Zaidi's staff. They're not doing massive changes to the scouting department or the analytics department.
That's what needs done.
Well, it didn't get done. All they did was they cut the head off and they left they took out the president, but they left the cabinet and they left the entirety of Congress. And then they're like, "Why? This didn't change." What are we talking about? Culture change. Buster will make everyone feel really good. Is he going to bring in big-time free agents? Steve Young, who I love to death, he's been so kind to me. He's the nicest dude on the planet. Obviously, I've heard he's pretty good at football. But Steve Young's on KMBR today and going, big-time free agents are going to come to San Francisco because of Buster Posey. Did I miss the part where Buster Posey wasn't in the meetings with Ohtani and Judge? Did I miss the part where Buster wasn't the guy out front? Because, again, this is to Farhan Zaidi's detriment. He wasn't the kind of guy to bring those dudes in. But Buster Posey didn't have a role in any of this? Like, what are we talking about? He's been part of the delegation for a decade now. They haven't brought in a big-time free agent. They can get you a Michael Conforto. But, he finished the job with Chapman. The Chapman job was only held up because Zaidi was looking at the numbers and saying, this doesn't line up with our models. Now, again, right or wrong, there was principle there. There was a plan there. You can disagree with it, but he had a plan. And ownership said, we want this to be done. And Buster stepped in and finished the job. That's great. But Buster's never recruited a big-time free agent to San Francisco, and he's been in all those goddamn meetings.
I can say this. Whenever you deal directly with someone who's an owner and as an agent, that agent is salivating. because they are like, oh, this guy, owners don't know. Like, we can give Farhan the credit. Yes, he did know the day-to-day operations. He knew the value. They overpaid for Chapman in years.
Yes.
I mean, they are going to regret that contract. The only thing that makes that contract any good, in my opinion, is if they are because he is there, that they attract other star players. If they don't, they are going to. They've got Evan Longoria 2.0 waiting for him in 2 years.
Yeah, and luckily we'll get 2 good years of Matt. I like Matt Chapman a lot.
I do too. I like him as a player. I don't think he's.
But again, this is where Farhan was at. This is where the organization. This is where the people trying to make these decisions went. I don't know. We're hamstringing ourselves here. It feels like we're doing something because we want to, rather than it's the most prudent move. Now, again, I do think the scales were over tilted towards prudency when it comes to Zaidi and in his operation, right? Because they're numbers driven. You have to remember the guys who run Major League Baseball teams now should be running hedge funds somewhere, right? This is not the reason that they're in these jobs is because there's these massive data sets, and it's a terrible thing, but these are baseball players. But when you have so many goddamn baseball players, you have to find a way to quantify it. Otherwise, you're hoping that your area scout in the, Texas League is the best in the game. You have to find a way to quantify it. And these guys have been brought in, Theo Epstein being the most famous, I guess, even going back to Billy Beane. They have to find a way to get these large data sets and be able to find these areas where they can exploit it. Now, everyone's operating off of this. I will note that Buster Posey is not, right? What is the appeal of a Buster Posey to the fan base? Oh, well, he has great baseball instincts. Well, shit, I got good baseball instincts. I could tell you if a guy's street, these things that we're talking about, the idea that just anyone, you played the game, you know what it takes. There's 5,000 players you have to know, right? You have to have an understanding. You have to have a system. You have to be able to build these models. And when Buster goes up there and is asked yesterday, back to back, what's your opinion on scouting and what's your opinion on analytics? And he's like, I'm for them. Like, there's no philosophy here. That's not a thing. You can absolutely be for both of them, but you have to have something more cohesive than we're going to use all the tools at our disposal. That's right. That's what I say when I'm potty training a toddler. I really find it disheartening that a business this big can be so flippantly run. Buster said he wanted the job, so we gave Buster the job. That's nepotism. That's all it is. I called it cronyism because nepotism has an incorrect definition colloquially, but nepotism also includes friends. It's nepotism. Right. Buster said he wanted the job. Buster's the smartest guy in the room. I agree with that. Give him the job. No one thought, can Buster do this job? Does Buster need a year to maybe learn the ropes of the job? Does Buster have a guy who can teach him the ways of this job? They don't know what the job apparently is, so they just gave it to Buster.
It's interesting because my plan that I spoke of the last few weeks when, I've been pushing for Farhan to be out for the last 2 years, but what I came up with the last 3-4 weeks was, let's bring Sabian and Coletti back. They're great friends.
Yeah.
They've talked on the air. Ned's been on here where he used to say, we were so competitive. We lost a game. We were up till 3 a.m. at the ballpark walking, trying to figure out how we're going to win tomorrow's game. Yeah. And we got an afternoon game at 1:00, and we're so upset we lost this game. And they worked together. And I thought, bring those guys back for 2 years and let them train someone underneath them that they handpick that would be, whether it's a Kim
like
Ning
a Bobby Evans.
Yeah, or somebody.
They already tried it.
Yeah, they tried that. But maybe somebody that they could hire the staff. They know the player development guys. Yeah. They know the scouts. You've got to get top scouts in here. You've got to get player development. You've got to revamp the entire organization because what they have right now is not working. They do not hit. They have, without Jung-Hoo Lee, they have 9 guys in the lineup that strike out over 20% of the time. You know how many the Padres have? Like 2.
Yeah. I'll say this. I do think,
and that's a hitting philosophy.
I agree with having a philosophy, and I do think that in particular the Giants should have a very specific hitting philosophy. I think, to what the Guardians have done, where their philosophy was just have a bunch of guys who make contact with the ball. And then this past year, they decided to throw that out of here, and we're going to start hitting home runs, and it worked out pretty well for them. I do think that I can totally understand. How about this? I can totally understand why Giants fans want to go back to 2010, 12, and 14. I can totally understand why that rings true and that you want to come back to that, because what's not to like? The issue that I have is, and this is a specific issue to me, Dieter Kurtenbach. I showed up a couple days after they won the World Series in 2014. Okay. So I didn't get to experience the Posey magic. I didn't get to experience the even year magic firsthand, right? I knew all about it. I'm watching on TV. I covered the game. Like, I was covering the Marlins. Like, I got it. But I didn't get to feel it. And everyone's a little high on it, right? They're going back. Nostalgia sells like crazy, and I get it. But because I don't have that well of nostalgia to go back to and all the good positive times, and I hear this all the time from my friends who are big Giants fans, just Sabian and go back, bring back Boch and all this stuff. Like, it just, you can't reverse the clock. And a couple things stand out to me from that era. One, the ball was dead. It was a dead ball era. You look at the statistic, literally the seams were higher and looser. The ball was dead.
Yeah.
That changed pretty radically. This was pre-StatCast, right? So yes, there was analytics, but you didn't have the kind of deep data that you have now, like across the board. And the third thing is, you're in an era now with the competitive balance tax. And beyond that, the proliferation of the hedge fund GM has fully metastasized. It's taken over everything. How many baseball guys are there left? Not many. Really not. Like a handful of old school, we're going by our gut, scouting baseball guys. Everybody else is a quarter zip who went to an Ivy League school. Now, neither right or wrong, that's just what it is. The idea of going back to an era that is so far gone 10 years ago and just playing that nostalgia game is a recipe for disaster. And I would get so PO'd the last couple of years as the Giants and Larry.
You have another fan here in Mitchell and Ness.
This won't age well. That's fine. Happy to be wrong about this.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, this is what you do. You write, your opinions, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, to me, I love Buster Posey. My dog's named Buster.
He's the best.
Yeah, and this isn't any guys. Dieter's not coming down on Buster in any way. If you guys are hearing that, you're not hearing it right. What he's saying is he doesn't have the experience.
I understand why the initial response is someone's attacking Buster. I get it, because I'm saying that he's not qualified for this job. And the idea that Buster Posey is in any way fallible does not jive with the perception of Buster Posey out there in the popular market. I get that. I'm not ducking it. I just think it's crazy that I'm the only one out here who seems to be saying this. I'm not saying this strictly to be contrarian. You think this is fun, getting blasted all day, every day for a take? You think it's fun being on the other side when everybody else is lined up against you? Hell no. I wish I wouldn't have done any of this, but it's my job, and I do feel strongly about this opinion. Again, Dunning-Kruger effect. Cognitive bias. People overestimate their own knowledge or abilities when they lack the expertise to do so. Worse yet, they transfer expertise in one area and believe that it correlates into something else. That's what this thing screams to me right now. If Farhan Zaidi's issue was the Peter principle, he was competent and he got promoted to a point of incompetence. Yep. Dunning-Kruger's much worse than that, because at least there was a floor with Farhan. Now, he was never, we saw, it was never going to get to the ceiling. But that guy, if you gave him nothing, would give you a 78-win team. Now, if you give him $240 million, he'd give you an 80-win team. But there's a floor there. Now, I don't know what Buster's ceiling is, but someone with no experience, it's pretty clear what the floor is. And it is, I just watched the Chicago White Sox. Chris Getz was a hell of a player, too, for the White Sox, it should be said.
Yeah. Hey, Derek Jeter did this job. He was a hell of a player, Hall of Famer, did not succeed at it. It's not easy. And Mitchell and Ness keeps, I brought up John Lynch too, but it is different.
Oh,
you got
God.
you got a 90-man roster that gets whittled down.
I'd be very happy to explain the nuance and differences of a baseball GM. Okay. First off, 5,000 players in the professional realm right now. In addition to about 1,000 players that can get tossed into that mix. In addition to every international prospect, every college player, every high school player of a certain caliber need to be known and understand in some sort of a way, right? Because trade deadline comes around and you got to make a trade. You better actually know who you like from the Rays single A team or double A team. You better have some idea. And yes, there are plenty of people that will work for you that will have some idea, but you better have some idea before they just say, go with this guy, go with that guy. You're the man who makes the decision. You better have some comprehension of it. An NFL GM, first off, let's explain the situation John Lynch came into. John Lynch, Hall of Fame player, really good broadcaster, in the game, in the mix. Okay. Clearly Buster Posey of the same ilk. Didn't broadcast. That's not a disqualifying factor in the least bit. But John Lynch comes in. Who hired John Lynch? It wasn't Jed York. Kyle Shanahan hired John Lynch because Kyle Shanahan was hired to run the whole shebang, and he got to pick his GM. So John Lynch comes in. All he has to do is manage the people that run the staff. Now, they actually inherited a pretty good staff. And I will say John Lynch's first move was to hire Adam Peters, someone who was his assistant GM. He came up through Adam Peters, obviously running the Washington Commanders now. They're looking pretty good these days.
Yeah.
But Lynch was a figurehead. He was the guy who you threw up at the podium on cut day. He was the guy who went to the combine. He was the guy who kind of did the grunt work and, pressed the flesh for Kyle Shanahan because he didn't want to do that stuff. He wanted to be in the lab coming up with plays. They also got a year zero. They had a year in which they could do whatever they wanted to tear that sumbitch down. And they did. And they did a hell of a job because 2 years later they're in the Super Bowl. But John Lynch was the number 2. He was hired as the number 2. He did Kyle's bidding. The players that were drafted, the players that were signed, that was Kyle's call. And Kyle can make calls like that because he had been in the league for 14 years studying every flippin' player there was on tape. He knew all their intricacies. He knew them in and out. He knew every rule of their defense and in offense and how good they were at it. That was his job. He also had a family lineage that goes back like crazy. And so a guy who had been in a player personnel role before, his dad was helping him out on that role. John Lynch gets to come up and develop into the GM because he had all that infrastructure around him. He was the number 2. He came into a great situation with the people already in place. He had a head coach who had a clear-cut plan for what to do. And now John Lynch is, in fact, the GM of the team. He makes the calls. Kyle has ceded that power. Okay, you can say that Buster Posey can end up doing the same thing. But Buster's the number 1. There is no number 2. The complexity of being a director of baseball operations versus being an NFL GM is immense. I mean, we're talking factors here. NFL draft is 7 rounds. I have a binder. Here's all the draftable players from last year. I can manage it. I've been called a moron a million times in the last couple of days. So what's that say about this? This is the NFL draft. All you have to do is have a slight opinion about any of these guys. You make 7 or 8 picks. The baseball draft takes 3 days. At the end of it, they barely want to broadcast it anymore. On top of that, you have minor league systems. There's no minor league in the NFL. You have a practice squad of guys who work with you during the week. They're in your building. But you run your staff, your players. And yeah, you have to have an understanding of all the players on the other teams. But there's not really any trades, right? Marginal trades. There's free agency, sure, but you have a certain amount of money. It's a hard cap league. And then there's the draft. Roster turnover isn't as significant as people think, except on the very bottom end. Baseball roster turnover is massive at all levels at all times. 5,000 players. 5,000 players. Buster Posey is responsible for knowing all of them right now. And he doesn't have somebody at his right hand today that can tell him the answers to all the questions on the test. And the test is coming up. Well, it's already started. He doesn't just have to manage Bob Melvin and his staff. He has to manage the staff of every of his minor league teams and how that player development system works and making sure that they have the right pitching mix and the right batting mix and making sure that their system is strong. The complexity of this is so enormous that Farhan Zaidi, who's legitimately one of the smartest people I've ever met, got his ass kicked. These guys could have PhDs in anything. They could be making tens of millions of dollars a year, if not more, running hedge funds in New York or on Sand Hill Road, doing stuff like that. They do this because baseball should be a lot more fun. Now, I don't know if it is anymore, but it should be a lot more fun. This is a better form of gambling for them.
Yeah. No,
smartest dudes, and they're getting their ass kicked.
When you put it like that, it is a daunting task. I've talked to some GMs about this. It is a 365-day-a-year job.
There's not enough hours in those 365 days.
And you're going crazy, and you're constantly scouting this. You're not just in charge of the major league team. You were talking to the minor league director every day. You better be.
Yeah.
What's going on? Who's ready? Who's not? What do we need to do? You need to talk all these different levels, and you got to hold these guys accountable. I mean, I'm surprised that they're not. To me, there should have been a plan a couple of months ago, and they should have had somebody ready to go. And you should be looking at possibly replacing Kyle Haynes if you want to go in a different direction. You should be looking at replacing, the coaching staff, the hitting coaches, all of these things. Have a plan. Maybe you want to keep them all. That's fine.
Fair.
But what's the plan? And
to go from firing Farhan, and by the way, they didn't make the decision until last week.
Which is shocking to me that it wasn't made a month ago.
But as you said earlier, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I'm right. Last time I was on this show. I mean, how long ago was that? I'm like, they got to fire him. I was the last defender of the guy.
Right.
Like, and by the way, there's a whole thing about that. We won't get into it here. So they fire Farhan. Suggestion, hey, stick around for the year, play out the contract. You can help Buster along. Obviously, that didn't go over well. Can't blame the guy for saying, no, I'll just take my money and go to Phoenix. Thank you. I'm good. I don't need this in my life. You can just fire me. Thank you. By the way, he probably has 10 job offers today to do the job that he is capable of doing, which is just being the GM of a team under a director of baseball operations. Regardless, if you fire Farhan on Monday or Sunday, whatever, let's just call it Monday, right? They put the announcement out on Monday. You say you're firing Farhan on Monday. What's the rush? Okay, you want to give Buster the job, that's fine. That's fine. Okay? Let's just presume that's fine. The fact that they thought that they could sneak this one past us is kind of laughable. Right? The fact that they thought that they could just put Buster in charge without any infrastructure around him, without any plan whatsoever, without even preparing some statements other than, wow, what a guy. What a dude, Buster Posey. He's in charge now. Don't ask any further questions because that would kind of, be a little wonky for us here. They just think, okay, we're going to put Buster in charge, but we don't have a number 2. Don't really know who the number 3 is going to be. I think he's just going to keep the staff around. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. The fact that they rush that into place is embarrassing, right? It doesn't bother me. I mean, clearly it bothers me to a certain point because clearly I care more than I want to let on. But the fact that it doesn't bother the fan base is blowing my mind.
Yeah,
they didn't need the positive PR of Buster on Monday. The positive PR is we fired Farhan.
Right.
Like, why are you double dipping? If you want to wait a week and make sure you have, hey, here's Buster and here's Billy Owens. He's going to be his number 2. And, we're going to stick with X, Y, and Z here. And then I go, well, shit, I don't know if it's going to work, but at least there's a plan. Instead, they're like, no, our plan was to fire Farhan, and I guess we're going to find out what's next. But we'll do a press conference about it.
Right.
Because they knew that people would just eat it up. But guess what? Now that's all, now it's going to wear away. And at some point, it's going to come down to the results. What the fuck?
Yeah, like you say, you make a lot of great points. They did not have to bring out Buster yesterday. Now you got this exciting news. You could have had the same excitement a week from now.
Totally.
and
Totally.
and you could have had a press conference with a GM in place,
Totally.
and you could have been. And I heard Buster say, and I understand what they meant by, we didn't want to be talking to other people with Farhan in the room. But you know what? You could have.
That's fine.
You could have just
then fire him 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks
exactly.
ago or a month
fire
ago.
Fire him 2 weeks ago.
Or say, hey, we waited as long as we could. We got about a 3-week window here where, business is pretty quiet just as the playoffs go on, right? There's not really any business. Arizona Fall League, like that can be managed. Like it's not that big a deal. But you got the Rule 5 draft coming up here in December. Obviously free agency around the same period. Like that's when you have to have your plan in place. So it's not to say that they can't have a plan in place, but what confidence does anyone have right now that they're going to have a good plan in place when this is the plan that they decided to trot out there? No plan other than Buster and his aura are going to fix everything. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. That's just embarrassing.
I understand where you're coming from because, I was one of those ones yesterday or whatever day it was, Monday. I was just so excited that Farhan was let go.
Yeah.
And I bought into the hype of Buster. I love Buster. I think he can potentially do a good job, but
no doubt, I agree.
But one of the comments I want to bring up here is this one right here. Heroku says, laughing out loud, Giants suck in 22, 23, and 24, and just because they hired Buster, we're a contender now. Exactly, because look, if I turn around. Now, I don't have the Padres hat. It's down on my desk here. But the Giants probably are going to be in the same position next year. Arizona is very upset. You heard their owner.
that was wild. Congratulations to Greg Johnson, who came out second in the most wild quotes from an owner yesterday. Greg's like, he wanted the ball. We just gave it to him. We didn't think twice about it. And then meanwhile, he's like, Jordan Montgomery sucks. And
my fault for signing him. What he was basically saying is, doggone it, why did I bring this guy? And he screwed our season. You want to blame anybody for losing out by one game? It's Jordan Montgomery. Yeah, and I signed him, but it's really Jordan Montgomery. And we really don't want him back next year, but he's got an option, I think. So.
Yeah, he's like, what if he didn't pick up? What if we made it so toxic that he didn't pick up that option? But again, this is what by the way, the Diamondbacks finished about, 10 games higher than the Giants?
Yeah, look at this year. D-backs got into the World Series last year with 84 wins. This year they won 89 and missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the Giants, I like that, though. I like seeing a team
I'm with you.
At 89 wins get in.
You got to earn it.
So the Giants got a long way to go to the cupboard. I keep saying this, Dieter. People on my show, and I get it. They're all excited about Bryce Eldridge, and I tried to point out, look, he's wonderful so far, and yet he's still only the 50th ranked prospect in all of baseball. That means other organizations, people that do this for a living. I mean, if our fans were, doing the rankings, he would be the number one ranked prospect in all of baseball.
We're doing this, and listen, he's a very different player. But having done the nighttime show at KMBR during some lean years there, let me tell you, we're doing the same thing with him as we did with Ramos and we did with Luciano, where by the way, this is not a unique thing to Giants fans. This is every goddamn fan base.
Yeah.
Every single one of them, their prospects are the best. The other team's prospects are the worst, right? Except for like the 10 guys that everyone knows, those guys are going to be perennial All-Stars. The Skeens and the Jackson Cherios and all that. Right. I can't believe I'm saying this. I always go back to the Chris Russo, Mad Dog Russo saying, prospects are suspects until they prove it at the major league level, right? I don't care. And we can get into the malpractice that the Giants have had at the farm system level for years. But the idea that Bryce Eldridge is a player that is so transformative, so transcendent, that somehow he will supersede the failures of the Giants farm system require me to see him actually do that. Right? I mean, I will say this specifically. How do I put this delicately? So there's a thing that AJ Preller does with the Padres where he overvalues by the level they play prospects, because he knows that every system that's been built in baseball, one of the key factors, they even mentioned it in the Moneyball movie, 26 AA pass. They know that age and level supersedes any of the stats. So you got Ethan Salas, right? Great prospect. Well,
number one
theoretically
prospect, yeah.
Prospect for the Padres. Well, he's 17 years old and he's playing at AA. So what does every model spit out? Elite player, elite player, elite player. Well, Ethan Salas sucked at AA this year. He shouldn't have been at AA. But they had him there so that his value is inflated, so that if there is a trade, the model says pull the trigger. Okay? Maybe this is something for Buster, because he won't have one of those models. I think you probably need one, and you probably should be able to work the model to understand that, hey, this is what's happening here. But this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the models and things like that. Right. Preller has been doing this to where he's been selling prospects that he's overvalued, or he knows that he can work the models to overvalue for years. And it's why the Padres are always willing to trade their quote-unquote top prospects, because they weren't actually top prospects, because Preller's like the all-time scouting guy. He knows deep down that that's not there, but he knows he can also work the models because he knows the models inside and out. I think Farhan has been doing that the last couple of years. I really do. And anyone that I talk to with two eyes and any knowledge about Luciano for multiple years now is like, what the hell are they doing with him at shortstop? Right. Why do they keep doing this? And an answer that I got last year at spring training was, well, shortstop's valued more than second base in the models. So if they ever want to trade him, shortstop is going to be there. Now, the problem was they kept him in the minor league system too long, and enough people got eyes on him to know that he can't play any flipping shortstop. And now they're stuck in... There was total mismanagement. I'm not trying to defend Farhan here. I'm just saying these are the kind of things that are happening. This is like weird high-level gamesmanship. And the idea that the Giants farm, I think a lot of the players in the Giants farm system are overrated, and it's still bottom of the barrel.
Right. No, I've watched them. I don't see a lot, Grant McCray, he's got speed, but he doesn't make contact. He strikes out 40% of the time.
He's a nice enough player. He can fill a gap for the 2 months there. By the way, the same thing is going to be true with Tyler Fitzgerald. No one saw Tyler Fitzgerald coming. Oh, he comes up. He has this great thing. What happened the last month of the season? Right now, it's a young player. You give him deference. You want to understand, hey, ups and downs. You got to learn. Pitchers are going to adapt. You got to adapt back. How many times have we seen guys just come up, give you the flash, and go away? Farhan held this thing together, and it's his own damn fault because he had 6 years. But he held this thing together with spit and some paper mache, and he could get an 80-win team no matter what, right? What happens when you don't have that person who can work the margins the way that Farhan did, or really any of these other quant guys could? Kind of the A's system, the Dodgers system. God, it's ridiculous, but that is the same thing. The Friedmans in the world, the Rays, whatever. What happens when you don't have that competence to a team that's already right there on the edge? I don't think it goes up.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Charlie Sinclair, thanks for the donation there. Problem with hiring Buster, if he's bad, he'll last longer than Farhan did because he's a franchise legend. What do you say to that?
This is another thing that's true. Buster is cashing in all of his chips, and those chips will last him a long time. Buster could have, with his reputation, he can ride this thing his entire 3-year deal. It will always be somebody else's fault but Buster, right? Fair enough. When we talk about this is the other thing that bothers me. Buster is ownership. Okay. Just because he's a likable face on ownership, which is why he's ownership, just because he's somebody that people want to see and want to talk to, and he's the best. Buster Posey's the flipping best. Even I can say that. Like I wasn't there for the really good stuff. I just know Buster Posey from being around. He's the nicest dude on the planet, and he's not phony about it. But regardless, he's still ownership. Okay, so I know he has a 3-year deal, and I don't know where we're going to be in 3 years here. but he's owner. What's he going to do to push back on ownership? He is ownership. And when did Giants fans start being so A-okay with Greg Johnson and ownership? I thought they were the problem. And now they're putting a member of ownership in charge like it's Jerry Jones, and suddenly that's going to fix the issues? If anything, Farhan made his own bed. He failed in many ways. But I don't think there's anybody on the planet who doesn't believe that Farhan wasn't hamstrung by ownership too. That he wasn't told, hey, we don't like the way that you go about your business. You need to change. He admitted to it as much. He wanted to do what's happening with the Tigers this year, what Scott Harris is doing with a lot of bullpen games, and sort of shift the way baseball is played. He wanted to do innovative things. People didn't want that. They want traditional baseball. That's what this market wants. Fair enough. Okay?
Right.
It's been made very clear. Again, I do KMBR. I hear it all night, every night. So
I'm more of a traditionalist myself.
And that's A-okay, because that message has been heard loud and clear from ownership. And ownership is saying, hey, don't do that. Don't do any of that stuff you want to do. And Farhan's like, well, that's the way to win. Okay, so that's what happened. That's why it's out. Okay, so Buster's going to come in and he's going to do it the way that traditionalists want to do it, and that I guess ownership hears they want. I don't know if they have any opinions on anything, but they're going to do it that way. What happens when that doesn't work? Because I'm of the belief that it won't work. But
so
again,
this question up here from TN.
Yeah.
What do you think the odds are that Buster will succeed?
I mean, the first tweet that I had out, and jokes on me for tweeting. First tweet that I had out is his most important hire is his first one, and that's who's ever going to be his right-hand person. And I keep coming back. So I can't tell you because, again, we're dividing by zero, right? If the structure, how about this? If the structure stays in the exact same place it is today, if they just promote the people that are still on staff into roles up, the percent chance of this working is zero. It will not work because that puts the entirety and the full onus of the responsibilities that Farhan was carrying, probably more responsibilities than any one person should be carrying. But Farhan was a micromanager, right? Farhan had to do everything. It put those full responsibilities on Buster Posey, who has no experience at this. And he's going to get eaten alive. I'm sorry. I don't care how competent Farhan Zaidi's a very smart, capable man. He got eaten alive. What happens when you don't actually have experience doing this? You can't Google how to get one over in a trade at the deadline. You can't, there's no chat GPT prompt for how do I build a proper hitting protocol to make sure that my prospects maximize their potential. You can't just call up Jim Callis and be like, hey, who should we draft here in the 13th round? I read Baseball America. I feel like I got a pretty good read on our late round prospects here. All of this stuff, even if you are in the game every day, in the capacities that Buster Posey has been in the game, is rocket science. Now, as someone who can lead people, who can get everyone on the same page, I don't know what his experience is on that, but he's such an affable guy. I don't mind anyone giving him the benefit of the doubt there, right? He clearly has Greg Johnson believing that he can do anything. I guess that matters to a certain degree. But in terms of, he's never managed. This is the equivalent of a $4 billion company hiring a CEO that's never done a CFO, CCO, any of those jobs before. It's just hiring their kid. It's the same thing. And if this was a publicly traded stock by anybody other externally, the whole world can bet one way or another, it would have crashed on Monday. It would have crashed on Monday because there is no leadership here. There's just an idea of leadership. There's a concept of leadership. There's good vibes. Vibes don't sell. It's a meme stock at this point if it stays up. And if you get it's a dead cat bounce. Right now, it's zero. Now, that can change because I need to see who he brings in, if anybody.
Right. It could change. Guys, I see a lot of people in the chat saying, Dan is just agreeing with this or that. Look, guys, Dieter has an opinion. I happen to agree with most of what he's saying because, look, I've been in the business world. I've seen guys. I've been in management. I've run sales teams. I've had sales teams of 25 guys working underneath me.
Yep.
I had success. I moved up to the next level. I did not have success because I knew how to motivate, but I couldn't run the day-to-day operations. What another company hired me to do. I was working in Connecticut. They brought me down to Louisiana, and it was like, I don't do all the structures. I'm not that's not me. I'm a sales guy. I motivate people. I get people to push hard I maximize I get the best out of them. But now you're asking me to do all the clerical and the stuff that goes into putting together a plan. It was over my head, and I left quickly, and I went back to what I did best. So what all this Dieter is saying is, guys, is most organizations, any organization is not going to hire an inexperienced person to run a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Yeah. It's just, and those are facts. And, are we hoping it works out? Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I'm hoping it works out. There's one flipping baseball team left in town.
Yeah. It's not like, and are we going to be pulling for Buster? Yeah, we're not rooting against it, but this is to say for you guys that just say, oh, Buster is, he's Buster Posey. Hey, Derek Jeter was Derek Jeter. How did that work out for the Marlins?
Yeah. I mean,
okay. Jordan was Michael Jordan in running the Washington Wizards. How did that work out?
Well, he had to show up.
Wayne Gretzky.
Now, I will say Wayne Gretzky had a couple of decent years as the coach of the Coyotes. I'll say that. Let's not go all the way in on Wayne. But yes, there's a lot of this. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
It happens. And you know what? It's we're
he can be the exception.
But he could be. And you know what? We know he's going to be determined. He's going to give everything he's got.
No doubt.
And Johnny says, okay, Dan, tell me, what did experience get us in the last 6 years? Hey, look, I think Farhan.
Can I throw this one out?
The Peter principle. I think he hired.
I'm with you 100%. The idea that, Farhan Zaidi had a great apprenticeship, all the recommendations in the world, was just, anointed to this job. The fact that he failed should be all the more reason to lean into resume and experience. And the idea that you go, oh, well, that failed. Therefore, anything that precluded or preceded it is false. We should, in fact, go with no experience and no understanding. Like, we should go the exact opposite direction. Shows how flawed the systems are in place with Giants ownership, right? I don't blame fans for doing that because, again, this stuff is way more complex than anyone wants to let on. I don't even know the half of it.
I guess we're going to lose our jobs if the Giants make the playoffs next year, Dieter.
We're going to be held to see the Giants made the playoffs.
We're going to be held accountable. What are you going to do? Put us on a cross? Come on.
Who's going to be making those moves?
This is sports. We're making opinions, please.
Oh, but no, it's Buster Posey. And so the cross was an apt metaphor there. It's Buster Posey. This is the challenge with Posey. Okay. This can absolutely work. The only way that it works is if he goes out and he hires one hell of a number two. And everyone's going, oh, get Kim Yang. Okay. She's not coming. She's not taking a job. And this is going to be their problem here. They're not going to find someone to do the job of a number one with the title and salary, or maybe not salary, maybe they overpay, of a number two, and all the credit as a number two. No one's going to want to take that for an organization that's worth $4 billion unless they're willing to give unless they're already in the system, right? And you think about the Giants over the last 5-6 years, they've been able to get a lot of folks who grew up in the area, have friends, connections. Oh, he lives in the offseason in Santa Cruz. He's now a Giant. They had the friends and family discount going. Oh, well, we hired Bob Melvin, so now we can get Blake Snell and Matt Chapman. There was always a connection. And when you think about that, when you go out into the realm of hiring what is, in effect, the director of baseball operations job for Buster Posey, to do Buster Posey's job here, which is he admitted to as much in the presser yesterday. He just wants to be a figurehead. Hell of a figurehead. Problem is you can't have a figurehead if there's no structure underneath him. Right now, there's no structure underneath him. And if you're keeping the structure that's in place, well, that might even be worse. So they have to go out and hire somebody who is either fully capable and willing to take on a lesser salary and a lesser title to do the full job, or they have to find somebody who should be jumping from a GM job to a GM job. That's going to be hard to do. And in fact, they'll probably have to compensate a team. Or they have to find someone who's a number 3 somewhere and promote them into effect the number 1 job. You see the problem with coming out with Buster Posey on Monday and then saying, hey, here's the plan. They couldn't even work this stuff out behind the scenes yet. There's no plan because the entire plan hinges on Buster Posey's number 2, and he doesn't have one yet. Now, he might be able to go out there and attract the big one. That'd be, by the way, the first big-time free agent he's attracted. He might be able to do it. But until that happens, this is an unmitigated disaster. Because Buster Posey, I don't care, the smartest people on the planet, you could throw him into this job. There's so much nuance and detail and intricacy to this. The idea that you can learn it on the fly is laughable. It's totally laughable. And right now, that's how they're operating. They're learning it on the fly. When Buster tells John Shea, oh, I'm going to talk to Brian Sabian about how to do this job. You're just getting around to that now? Like, if you thought you wanted this job, it's clear that Buster didn't even know he wanted this job until a couple of days ago. Then he said yes, and Greg Johnson didn't have the leadership to say, how about we come up with a plan for getting you into the job? How about we do what the Warriors did with Bob Myers, and we bring you in, you're the assistant GM to somebody. We bring back Sabes, and you're the assistant GM to Sabes, and Sabes retires. We give him a big, nice check. He runs the show for 2 years, and then you take over. That's all the rage right now across sports, sort of the GM in waiting, because you burn out fast in this job these days.
Right.
He was the GM in waiting, and he decided on Friday, that he wanted to be the GM. And they just
I'm
gave
shocked
it to
that
him.
he hadn't talked to, like you said, hey, Brian.
Haven't even called Sabes about it, saying, hey,
a few weeks ago, month ago, hey, I'm thinking maybe
a year ago.
Yeah.
Months ago, weeks ago, days ago, last Monday before he goes on the press conference. Like, what am I getting myself into here? That's the other thing. That's the thing that is most jarring. Buster's like, I can do this. And then you're like, how are you going to do this? And he goes, I'll kind of figure it out. Oh, boy. A lot of confidence. Got to, I'll say this a million times over. You got to applaud the cojones on this guy. No one believes in Buster Posey. And this is really being challenged by a lot of folks out there. But no one believes in Buster Posey more than Buster Posey. That's a very laudable quality in this job. There's a lot of other things you need to be able to do, though, and he has shown.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no track record of him doing them.
Right. I mean, the only chance that I see that this can be successful is if Buster, as making the decision that he's the guy and he's going to pay for it. It's going to cost the team a lot of money.
Yeah,
but you're going to have to pay. If he's willing to go pay Juan Soto $600 million or $700 million and overpay. Way over market, and he's willing to go get Willie Adames, and he's willing to go out and re-sign Blake Snell, and he's willing to go out and get a couple other guys that hit for contact and pay for $300+ million like the Dodgers do. I think that's the only chance they have.
But that's a short-term solution, right? Like, this is the other thing. We're not just talking about taking a San Francisco Giants operation that's flourishing everywhere but can't get over the hump at the major league level. You're trying to take an organization that can't develop, doesn't have the prospect base, and is middling at the major league level. In fact, the major league level might be the best version of the San Francisco Giants. Like, that's the problem, right? So, he'll hire someone, he'll handle the minor leagues, or she'll handle the minor leagues. We'll hire someone, they'll handle Scott. All of these hires needed to be in place when you announce Buster Posey because he doesn't have the experience doing it. So you need to insulate him publicly with these people. Though actually, credit to the Giants. They were right. They didn't need to because I'm the only one out and I'm taking the arrows on this right now. But by the way, by going out there initially and presenting this, you don't think that you get a call from Buster Posey. He says, "Hey, I want you to come and run, be my assistant GM or whatever the title is, run the scouting department." You don't think they're going to pull up the Buster? It's on YouTube, and they're going to watch, and you're going to have, Tim Kawakami, "What's your philosophy?" And they'll stammer and, "I really like Bob." And it'll just, hey, I'm going to go work for a company. And the guy who takes over the company, his introductory press conference, he can't explain a vision. He goes up there and he goes, "Oh, just so happy to be, I really wanted to be part of a team again. I'm just so happy to be part of a team again." And then he goes up there and remembers some guys. And when he runs out of the old guys, he starts naming, guys who are more contemporary. But just so happy to be part of a team again. You're part of ownership. You could have created any role on the planet. You could have made up a new role, and you could have been part of the team. But the only way for Buster to be part of the team is for him to run the entire team. And Greg Johnson, which, by the way, the photo on my most recent column of Greg Johnson looking at Buster Posey, I wish my wife looked at me like that. I wish I had that kind of admiration. I got a toddler, and even she's side-eyeing me.
Yeah.
I
love these comments here.
Box office. You know what's box office? Winning baseball games.
I'm going to have to put up.
Let me throw one more thing out there while I'm digging
my own grave. We got to put up the free Kool-Aid we're going to have here for everybody. Okay. So guys, join in. We've got some Kool-Aid for you.
Buster's comment yesterday about, we're in the entertainment business. We're in the memory business. I get why that resonates. Okay. He's not wrong. But the Savannah Bananas are in the entertainment business. They're in the entertainment business. The San Francisco Giants business should be very simple. 3 letters, WIN. You know where the memories come from? You know where the entertainment comes from? Winning baseball games. People don't get entertained by watching. Shit, they won 80 of them this year. Who felt entertained? You are entertained by playing the kind of baseball that when you look at the standings, it's reflected positive quality baseball. Well, yes, everyone says they want to do that. You have to have the players to do it. And when you say, getting on par with the Dodgers, we go out and sign all these free agents like the Dodgers do. That's right. The Dodgers do that. You know what else the Dodgers do? Develop pitching about as well as anybody in Major League Baseball. They're not going out there and signing 4 or 5 starters every year or filling the roster holes. No, they bring dudes up. They have a system. They've developed a Max Muncy, who was an outcast. They have, just how many different arms do they have? Now, all of their arms explode, but they have arms coming out of their ears up there. Like, it's insane to me that people think that this can be patched over with money. They tried to do that this year. How'd that work? You know? The money's not the issue. It's the overall system. The tree has rotted from the inside. It's no wonder that it doesn't have good colored leaves. You have to rebuild the entire structure. That's why Farhan had to go. I wasn't angry about Farhan not getting big-time free agents. I was angry that his farm system consistently got worse.
Right.
And that at a certain point, he was flubbing the numbers, at least in my opinion, to make it look like it was better than it was. That was the issue. If you don't have the farm system, and I'm not saying it has to be number 1 or whatever. I'm not saying you bottom out or whatever. I'm just saying if you don't have a system in place that can develop Major League Baseball players to fill 5, 6, 7 spots of a lineup and 3, 4, 5 spots of a rotation and pretty much an entirety of the bullpen. If you don't have that system in place, it does not matter who you put at number 3 in the order. Shohei Ohtani never played in the playoffs for the Angels. He's the best player I've ever seen in my life. How are Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani doing? Well, they were big-time players. Yeah. And the system of the Angels is rotted in the middle. They have the worst system. They've perpetually had the worst system. And so they never had a playoff team. Well, when they did, they'd get bounced real fast. That's why things had to change. And the idea that Buster Posey's going to come in with some good vibes, it doesn't address that problem at all. You think that's going to bring the Major League Baseball team 5 more wins? They got to rebuild an entire roster in the offseason. Yeah. You think that I mean, it's unbelievable.
Look at this, guys. We'll show you this. This is just put out a week ago. Bleacher Report.
And you can say what you will about Bleacher Report, and obviously they're a little bit higher, but there's nobody on the planet who thinks they have a good farm system.
Look where the Giants are. Dead last.
And that's with Eldridge.
That's with Eldridge. This is top prospects.
I mean, what Wisenhunt?
They got one tier 1 guy.
I like Wisenhunt. He's fine. Grant McCrae's tier 3. That checks out. Reggie Crawford's tier 3. That checks out.
And Reggie Crawford is out for the year, by the way, next year with his shoulder surgery.
Of course he is. Rainier Arias. Is Rainier Arias going to be, your everyday left fielder?
He's still a few years away, at least.
I know. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Whereas, and who's
Dakota
right above
Jordan, their second-round draft pick, who's got lots of potential, but a lot of swing and miss, but he's got tools, but still tier 3. Now, if I look at other teams, you're going to see some teams with 5, 6 tier 1s.
Yeah.
And
by the way, a lot of those teams are successful. You go to who's the top team?
Let's see. I haven't even looked at it. Let's scroll through this.
And again, this is just Bleacher Report, but again, you go across the board. I mean, you look at the top 100 prospects for MLB Pipeline or whatever. It's nothing. Oh, there's the Mariners. You know what the Mariners record was this year? Pretty much the same as the Giants.
Number 1. Look at how many tier 1s they've got.
Yeah.
6. No tier 3s.
Mariners won 85 games this past year.
I haven't even reviewed this. Who's number 2?
Junior Caminero and the Rays. You know how many games they won? 80.
Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah. And by the way, that's graduating Caminero. They'd be number 1 if they hadn't graduated him.
Yeah,
Carson
he's not
Williams
even
is
on
a
there.
stud.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got.
Oh, look at that. The Red Sox. You know how many games they won? 81.
Wow.
So all of these teams, you think Mariners, you think, Rays, you think Red Sox, arrows pointing up. Cubs bottomed out, right? But they're in the exact same situation. 83 wins for the Cubs.
Yeah.
Going up. They got one of the best. I would argue he's the best prospect now that Job is up and Cade Horton. He's unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow.
Look at all those tier 1s. Now we can disagree on if they're tier 1s or tier 2s, but the fact of the matter is they're loaded with talent.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is the Cleveland Indians. Guess who's not playing this week? Sorry, the Guardians.
Yeah. Look at that. Yeah.
Guardians, 92 wins. There's their farm system. Here's how bad it is. I could tell you the farm system. You didn't even need to scroll up.
Oh, there's the Tigers.
There's the Tigers right there.
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah.
Just won a playoff series.
This kid, Jackson Jobe, pitched today. He didn't do that great.
Unreal. He's going to be so goddamn good.
Yeah.
I mean, we're blessed right now because of Skeens. And so everyone's just going to compare him to Skeens. That's not fair.
Oh,
Jacob Wilson.
Look at is that the A's? I think it is.
Yeah, that's the A's. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the A's. By the way, the A's won 69 games. They didn't lose 100. And, they had a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
You watch the A's and you say, hey, there's something there. Right? It's going
the Dodgers. Somewhere. Look at the Dodgers.
Look at the Dodgers. And by the way, perpetually in the top 10. So this idea that it's like, oh, the Giants are just on the cusp. No, this is catastrophic. It's brutal. There's the Brewers.
Yeah.
In the playoffs.
In the playoffs. Wow.
Now I disagree with Miskorowski. He's kind of a funk dude. I don't buy it coming up, but that's, by the way, without what's his name?
Churio. Jackson
Churio.
Yeah.
I get him and Caminero next up, JC.
Yeah. And then
that's without Churio.
Now who's this? Oh,
this is the Rangers.
The Rangers, Kumar Rocker. Yeah, he just came up at the end of the season.
78 wins.
Yeah. And you're probably going to have the Padres coming up here pretty soon, I would think.
No, Padres are way down there.
Are they down?
Remember correctly.
Okay.
This one I couldn't tell you.
Is this the Rockies, isn't it? Chase Dollander?
That sounds right.
Yeah, Rockies.
Look at that.
Wow. Okay.
Well, yeah. By the way, Giants feel like they're closer to the Rockies than they are to the Diamondbacks or the Padres right now. I know that's not factually true, but emotionally it is. Dylan Cruz, obviously the
Nationals.
That's
Washington, yeah.
That's having graduated. They won 71 games. That's having graduated James Wood, yeah.
Yeah. Helped me win my fantasy league, James Wood.
I love me some James Wood. They got a good system there. They had to bottom out for it, though. No
right.
Schultz, Colson, Montgomery.
And they traded Juan Soto and got like 4 great prospects.
Yeah. Who's this coming up?
Let's see. This is Noah Schultz. I don't know this team.
This is the White Sox.
It is the White Sox. 13. There
So
you
when
go.
when everyone says, "Oh, the White Sox are the worst," you're right. They are the worst. Look at those 4 tier 1s. Look at those tier 2s.
Yeah, this is what I go through every night, Dieter, with my chat, because Eldridge, and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited about Eldridge too. But you know what?
The fact that you're talking about Eldridge tells you how big of the problem it is.
That's all we're talking about. And the fact is that Eldridge, I try and tell people, look, the Angels didn't make the playoffs with 2 of the greatest players ever to play the game.
Correct.
And you think Bryce Eldridge is going to be the answer?
Yeah.
You need a lot.
And you just hired someone who has no experience building, restructuring, identifying, any of it. And the idea that free agency is going to fix this problem, it might prolong the symptoms. It might push them out, but all it's going to do is when the tree falls, it's going to fall harder because it is so rotten on the inside.
Do you think that they can find a guy? Is Billy Owens, can he be that guy that takes over really, and Buster's just the figurehead?
Well, by the way, whomever takes over is going to be the person. Buster made it very clear yesterday. I don't know how anyone else, how they missed it. And again, I'm not anchored on any, like I made it very clear going into that press conference to anyone who asked, I would love to be wowed. I would love to have to eat crow and then just be like, yeah, I suck. I overreacted. I thought this was bad, but they got a great plan in play. I'm feeling good about it. They got an idea and we'll see how it goes. But it seems like they got everything buttoned up. I knew that wasn't the case, but I was, Buster works in mysterious ways. I was very happy to find out. And I found out there's no plan. There's no plan. So the idea of Billy Owens coming in, like, let me put it to you this way. If Buster Posey wasn't involved in this, again, and the Giants fired Farhan Zaidi and hired Billy Owens, would anyone feel good about that?
I would.
Okay,
just because Farhan's gone.
I mean, again, at a certain point, we're doing the boogeyman. It's become so entrenched with the Farhan thing that anybody else will do. Clearly, anybody else will do.
I've heard Billy Owens knows a lot of the.
Oh yeah,
those 5,000 players you're talking about.
If you're in the A's organization and you're on the scouting side, you better know a lot of women players. So you better have an opinion on everybody. Yeah. So I'm not saying I don't know if he'd be good or bad. My point is merely, I don't think he's going to be. I want to be kind to Billy Owens because he doesn't deserve to get dragged in any way. But Billy Owens hasn't been getting a lot of interviews for GM jobs or director of baseball operations jobs. Okay. I don't know why that is, but it does feel like another, hey, don't want to move to Sacramento? Come on over. Another friends and family discount for the Giants, which that's gotten him. It's gone great so far.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I know this,
but he could be incredible. He just needs the opportunity. I don't know.
Right. The only way I could see this working is if Buster goes out and gets, a Dombrowski type, someone from Tampa Bay, their second guy, and says, you know what? Well, I'm president of baseball operations, but you have the reins to run the entire operations. You just answer to me what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I could see this working. If Buster's trying to do everything as far as what Farhan did, that's going to take a 3 years minimum of learning curve.
If it can be learned, right? Because Farhan was operating on
his experience.
Yeah. I mean, he was doing this job. Number 3 for the A's, number 2 for the Dodgers, number 1 for the Giants. He reached his peak, and he's not the worst GM in baseball. He's not high on the list.
See, my thought when they named Buster was, oh, he's not going to do, I had people telling me, predicting Buster was going to get named president of baseball ops last year.
Yes.
And I thought, I can only see it if it's as a figurehead title that he's just overseeing.
Totally said as much yesterday.
And if that's okay, and he hires somebody that agrees that they're the number, they're really the number one, but they're the number two on paper.
Maybe they have number one pay. That would be nice.
Yeah,
I think it's probably required.
And I think
Buster's also an ego thing there, right? Like, why would you want to be? Why would you actively want to be the number two? Because in order to get somebody who is unquestionably qualified for that gig, you have to be hiring somebody who would be in the running to get a director of baseball operations job somewhere else. They'd probably be a number two somewhere. And now why would you, if you're capable of being a director of baseball operations somewhere, why would you leave a position where you have built up that kind of reputation? You're clearly having some success. Why would you leave that job to go take the same job with more responsibility for a guy who, by the way, can't be fired?
Right. If the Giants would have thought this through, the ownership,
that's what I'm getting back to.
Yeah. The plan should have been, okay, Buster, we're going to name you. You're going to be board of directors, but your role is to oversee the president of baseball ops.
Sure.
And go hire a president of baseball ops, because now you can actually get somebody who's a GM and they can, you can ask somebody to become your GM, and then a team has the right to say, I believe, no, it's a lateral move, right?
Correct. That's the other issue they're going to run into. And we didn't want to do that with Farhan. They didn't want Farhan to know he was about to get fired. By the way, they didn't know until later. So they didn't want to start interviewing those people when Farhan was still around, because he would find out pretty quickly, hey, they're interviewing people for your job, except not really your job, because it's a lateral move thing. And again, like, the only way that this works is that they take someone who is a number three somewhere and they put him in a job that is effectively number one, which is it's a lot less of a jump than taking someone with no experience and putting him in the number one job, which is what they currently have. So I'm fascinated to find out who he hires, because let's be clear about this. He's got to hire someone.
Right. And I get that, I got somebody telling me, bad idea, Posey is Pobo, period. I get that. That's the mistake. What we're saying is he's Pobo when he didn't have to be Pobo. He could have just been. He
can make up any job he wants.
He's owner. He could just.
By the way, you don't think that Greg Johnson would have gladly ceded all of the public responsibilities of the ownership role to him? Right. It's like, you own 4% or what, 3%, one, less than one. Doesn't matter. You're the owner of the team now. I never have to do this again.
Right. You're the spokesperson. You're out there.
You're the chairman of the board. Congratulations.
And that the Pobo.
Everyone answers to you.
The Pobo actually reports directly to Buster, and he's the number one guy. The Pobo's the guy running the organization. He can call all the shots. He can, the only thing he doesn't even need Buster's approval when it comes to trades or transactions. He only needs Buster's approval when he wants to spend a little more money than the budget says.
That's right.
That's it.
I mean, this thing reeks. I mean, Billy Owens has been brought up a lot. I'm not saying it won't happen. There's a whole thing to be had there. They named Jeremy Shelley in that press conference when no one asked about him. And Jeremy Shelley, who's just been around the team forever, by all accounts, a very nice guy. Number 3, effectively, in the Farhan ladder. If that's the guy, then we clearly know that there was zero plan in place and that Buster can't bring in anybody from that is DEFCON 1. I'm already there. If you'll all be joining me if it's Jeremy Shelley. No offense to Jeremy Shelley. Maybe he'll be great at the job. But the fact that they couldn't even get someone from the outside to take that job is the reddest of red flags to me.
And just a little note to some of you in the chat that are taking shots at Dieter. Let me just say this.
Have at him.
He's used to it. He could take it. But
also, I don't see them.
Yeah. Put on some critical thinking skills, guys. You guys that are just saying that Buster's great. He's going to do great. Yeah. How would you like to
explain that? Show your work.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, legitimately, like I've seen this, like, Hank Schulman coming at me, worst take of the century. Again, very happy to have the title. I've been trying for so long, and here we are. Like, oh, Buster's so prepared. Buster, no one saw the game like Buster. You know who's been working? Carlos Beltran's been working in a front office for years now. Now, he might have been stealing signs for the Astros so that he has to, all these things. But, like, by all accounts, Carlos Beltran is as smart of a dude that's been on a baseball field to the point where he can create a sign stealing system. And hire him. At least I can point to, he had all this great on-field experience, one of the smartest dudes in baseball, understood the game like no other, was giving these incredible detailed scouting reports to younger players, all these nuances of the game. And now he's been working in front offices, working for the Mets right now. You put him in charge, I go, that makes perfect logical sense. Because there's a connection between playing career and success there, and then front office understanding and experience. Buster Posey, his experience to this point screams manager, not director of baseball operations. If Buster Posey was hired as the Giants manager, it would be a slam dunk, 100% Dieter's on board. Let's rev up the machine higher, because all of the qualities that people are describing on why Buster will do well are what make managers good. But what the qualities that make a director of baseball operations good, he's never really shown before. It's a totally different gig. And the complexity of that gig is so much more intricate. Buster Posey is a great people person, handles every day, can tack the day, competitive, holds people to account, great with the media and the fact that he never says anything interesting. Like, all of these things. Replace Bob with him then. The problem is you can't do it because Buster's part of ownership, and you can't be a manager if you're an owner. But what can he do? He can be the director of baseball operations. And so they gave him that job, even though it's not germane at all to any of the skill sets that he has to this point displayed. Stephen Vogt is a great manager. Why? Because of all the qualities that Buster Posey also had. Great preparer, great people person, all these things. No one asked Stephen Vogt to take over their entire baseball operations staff, much less a team that's worth $4 billion and needs a complete overhaul of their entire everything.
Right. It's funny because I see some people say, Dan, the opposite is true. You have to believe that, he could possibly do well. Yeah, I've said that. I've said that. He could do well.
No one has said that he can't. The fact of the matter is, you look at it now and people are asking, what are the odds on it? The odds are zero. The odds are zero because he has clearly stated that he does not want to do the job that he was just hired to do in theory, right? In theory, he wants to do a different job, and that he wants to hire someone else to do the job that he should be doing in that role. Okay, but he doesn't have that person yet. So how can I pretend that this is going to work? And by the way, if it's Jeremy Shelley, I don't know if Jeremy Shelley's good or not at that, but the fact of the matter is, he's been with the organization for 30 years. He's the guy they keep holding over. Like, that says something too. They didn't call any of the top people for this gig. That's the damning part. You want Buster Posey to be part of this organization? Hell yeah. He absolutely has the qualities and characteristics to be part of the solution. You now made him the singular solution. That is malpractice from ownership. You put a guy who has no experience in charge of everything. His baseball experience does not translate to the front office. If it did, you would see front offices across baseball filled with great former catchers. Instead, you see dugouts. And what's in the front office? A bunch of dorks like me. You might not like it, but it's working out for a lot of them. Like, they didn't call Kim Ng. Fine, that's their prerogative. Who else didn't they call? They didn't call Mike Chernoff. They didn't call Eric Nylander. They didn't call Ben Stefanich. Who else didn't they? I mean, go down the line.
Yeah.
Number 2 with the Braves. Number 2 with the Rays. Number 2 with the Guardians.
Who's the guy with the Rays, number 2? What's his name again? Because we brought him up.
Eric Neander.
Okay, there's another guy that's
Yeah, they have
got a
3
Spanish
assistant GMs.
Ramirez or something.
Yeah,
Or
it's Carlos Ramirez, I think is
he's
his
got
name.
some scouting background, I
Yeah,
believe. And
but it doesn't matter. They didn't call him.
right.
And by the way, I totally understand where Giants fans would be coming from if they were to have called David Forst and said, hey, come on over. Well, we don't want Moneyball. We don't want that analytics stuff. Buddy, like the reason that you went to Buster Posey, if you don't want that, then you have to go to a guy like Buster Posey who has none of that, because everybody's like that who's qualified to do this job right now.
Yeah, somebody brought up earlier what about Chris Young of the Texas Rangers? Well, he had a lot of experience.
Worked in Major League Baseball for several years afterwards. By the way, very bright dude, and was certainly offered jobs with Wall Street firms and things like that. He wears the quarter zip now. He also worked for 2 years under John Daniels in Texas. He was his GM. He was his number 2. That was the transition plan. It's the same thing that happened with Larry Harris and Bob Myers. Bob comes in, he's the assistant GM. He learns the ropes from Larry. Within a year, he takes his job. That would have, and I think that was the Giants' original plan. Buster will come in, he'll work with Farhan, and then he'll take over. Well, Farhan's like, I'm not going to write my own death warrant here. You might as well just kill me now. I can get a job anywhere else in baseball as a number 2, because the number 2's job should be to manage the slight day-to-day stuff on, hey, we need to get a 27th man out because, we got a doubleheader, or, hey, this guy's going on the paternity list. How can we manage the options? Or, hey, this guy's on waivers. Should we bring him in? Or what should we do in the Rule 5? Those sort of things at the major league level, that's what a GM does. Director of Baseball Operations has a holistic mindset that has to work top to bottom. He has to build the system from bottom to top to bottom. There has to be an organizational flow of it. He has to manage every coach, every player, every scout. You're not doing that on charisma alone. You're going to die within 5 minutes.
I looked back today at the old press conference when Farhan came in and Larry Baer introduced him.
Yeah. And
Larry Baer talked about, we brought in Farhan. It was, it was originally scheduled for a 2-hour interview. It went 6.5.
Yeah.
And all this. But he said they had several people they were bringing in. The Giants didn't do any of that.
Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure is a violation of the C League rule, which they tried to get around by saying, hey, we're going to be really in on the C League rule for the GM job. But maybe they can bypass all of that, because are they really hiring Buster Posey, or are they just giving him more responsibilities as a board member?
Yeah. I would feel better about it if I always thought when Buster came that he was going to oversee whoever was running the Giants' day-to-day operations, that they would report to him and not Greg Johnson.
Yeah.
So to me, that Buster's hand is involved in the day-to-day operations is fine if somebody is running it with experience. Yeah. I think that's what I think that the fact that Buster is president of baseball ops and title, now it limits you to bringing in not a GM, but an assistant GM now. You're going to have to find somebody who's an assistant GM who's really third in the pecking order of an organization, because now you have, in the old days it was GM, assistant GM, right, and then whatever.
And then everything just got bumped up one.
Yeah. So now you got Pobo, and you got GM and assistant GM. Yeah. So it's going to be hard to find a GM because that's a lateral move, and teams are going to say, and if somebody says, do you really want the guy that a team says, we'll let our GM go? Yeah. Do you really want that guy?
Well, I mean, and look at what the Cardinals just did this with Mosaic. They hired Chaim Bloom to be his GM, and now he'll take over in 2 years, right? But they felt like, hey, we need to rebuild this entire thing. We're going to bring in Chaim, who got ran out of town in Boston because they have high standards there, but did do a very good job clearly with the minor league system and rebuilding all that. His issue was he traded Mookie Betts. You're not coming back from that one. Fair play. But now he's taking over. He'll take over in St. Louis, but he now gets they're doing it to where he's taking over in St. Louis. He's going to do a year or two of apprenticeship just to learn the St. Louis system. Not the job. not the overall responsibilities of the gig, which are immense and daunting, but just to learn their system. Here's what's going to happen. I'm telling you right now. They're going to hire Jeremy Shelley, who's currently the Giants' number 3, as the GM. And it's going to be bad. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they can get somebody from the outside. Their qualifications, I mean, if it's from the outside, I can't totally speak to their qualifications. I'm not in like that. But maybe whomever they get maybe Shelley's great. Maybe whomever they get is great. But you're right. They're going to have to probably hire a number 3 to do the job of a number 1. And if that doesn't worry you as a Giants fan, because, Buster's in charge, I don't know what to tell you anymore. I mean, I don't know how you can have watched this team for 6 of the last 7 years and feel like they understand what's going on here. And all they've done is double down on more of the same. They just got they got the guy that everyone hated out, and they put in a guy that everyone loves. Well, the guy that everybody hated, who did need to go, by the way, probably should have gone in different manner than this, but he did need to go. That guy also did a pretty decent job, at least at the major league level, of maintaining they never bottomed out, which, by the way, is the only mandate that he got from ownership. Don't bottom out. This team might bottom out even with that mandate, because at least Farhan could hold it together to win 80. At least he could keep it up with the fringe moves and working the margins. Buster Posey's clearly a lot different than you or I. But, again, this is no different than them just hiring Joe Mauer to do this role. Or going, hey, Stephen Voigt did a great job as a manager for the Guardians. Let's make him our director of baseball operations. It's the same stuff. And to me, it's just laughable, and it's complete malpractice. And frankly, I feel bad for Buster, though Buster did bring this upon himself because he asked for the ball. But I think a competent ownership group goes, we're not just giving you the ball. Why, without a plan? We better get something. We want to do this. We better do this right. And instead they said, that's a great idea. We'll figure it out later. $4 billion company run like a mom and pop shop.
And I got a lot of people taking shots at both of us here.
It's fine.
Hey, everybody's got their opinion, but that's what sports is all about.
I would just like someone to explain to me why Buster Posey is a better option than Farhan Zaidi.
Right. Someone called you a shock jock.
I wish.
Have you been called that before?
Yeah, I've been called that every day of my life.
A shock jock.
Oh, hot takes. Here's a hot take. Someone who has no experience in a job got hired to do a very, very difficult job. I haven't, obviously we're in a very political season, but maybe this is something that's up your alley. I don't know. I can't speak to anybody else here, but they typically hire politicians to be the president of the United States because they have some understanding of how the systems work. That doesn't mean they'll be good or bad. They didn't do that one time. I wasn't a big fan of the results personally. That's me.
Yeah. And here we are again. Yeah. I just got to say to everybody out there that is thinking that we're just crapping on Buster. No, we're really speaking to the ownership. Okay.
100%.
They hired.
I'll be clear. I'm crapping on Buster a little bit for thinking that he can do this without a plan in place.
Yeah. I mean, I get it.
He's part of the problem here.
Right. I love Buster. I love him as a player. I love him as he made a nice video to my mom when she had cancer and she was dying, and he said some
capital
nice
dude. Capital dude.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of nice guys who fail.
Yeah. I'm not saying I happen to believe that this is going to be a difficult road ahead for the Giants. They are, guys, if you don't, everybody in this chat, Dieter and I talk to people in the industry. Yeah. Okay. The industry looks down as the Giants as years away. And I've been telling you that. I've been telling you this for the last year or two. The Giants are years away from getting out of this mess because you have nothing in the minor leagues, guys. I mean, Bleacher Report ranked him 30th, so they could have put him at 23rd. You feel better?
No.
I mean, come on.
There's no collateral here. You're operating with this is, again, you're putting someone with no executive experience into the CEO job of a company whose balance books are bleeding red. Does that resonate with anybody else but me?
Yeah.
It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it is just yelling at us in the face. But because the face is very handsome and has a great smile and reminds us of the good old times, we're just going to go along with it. Here's the problem. Here, I feel bad for Buster Posey on this. He's doing this to himself. He's part of the problem. All this credit, all the credit in the world to him. And also, what are you doing, buddy? You're putting yourself out there to ruin your impeccable reputation. Why bother? Why bother? When he showed back up in the Bay Area 2 years ago, he says, I don't want to be on the day-to-day stuff. And within 2 years, his pride, his competitiveness, all this stuff came through, and he's like, I got to take over the entire operation. It just, I get why he did it. I get why he feels that way. The fact that there wasn't a single guardrail in place to stop it from happening, and that there was nobody anywhere in the structure of the Giants organization to be like, well, this is a big, bold move. We're going to do this. We better have our ducks in a row. The fact that that's the case, I don't know how you can feel confident about this other than, oh, we love Buster. We just love Buster. Great. I love my mom. I wouldn't put her in charge of the Giants.
Yeah. And then, like you say,
I ever met my golden retriever, Moose? He'd be a great day-to-day guy.
Yeah.
Love him to death. Can't get enough of them.
Great dogs. Great dogs. I've owned 3 of them, and now I got my 3rd lab. So, but
the labs eat more. They're a little more food motivated, I hear.
Yeah, they are.
And that's crazy to believe because my man Moose lives up to the name. It's like 80 pounds. He's a hoss.
The whole thing with the Buster thing, like you made a really good point I hadn't thought about, because my first thought was, hey, Buster's going to be in the negotiations and he's going to be dealing directly and he's going to be able to, hey, Scott Boras, here's what we want. We want to get Soto. What is it going to take to get him here? But he was in on the Ohtani. Yeah. He was there. He was there. He's the one
that
forgot
to give Buster Posey a seat at the table when Aaron Judge was in town. What are we talking about? They called up Rich Aurelia for that. Like, they called anybody. Steph Curry is in these conversations.
Right. That's right.
They're pulling out anybody they can. If they thought you or I could help, we'd be in the room. They're not holding anything back in these negotiations. The players don't want to come here. And if it's, and then Buster's out here saying, well, it's probably because of Fox News. Maybe. I'm not saying that's incorrect. I'll also say that, this ballpark, not exactly encouraging if you want to be a power hitter. Like, oh, what do I need to do to be a prolific power hitter? Well, this guy Bonds did some stuff. It didn't go over well for him, but he did get the record. That's what you need. You need a juiced ball and a juiced bod. That's how you hit home runs at Oracle Park, unless they want to bring in the fence.
Especially if you're a lefty.
No doubt. So, like, Shohei Ohtani's like, they're offering me $700 million to go and play in Los Angeles. And these guys are offering me $710 to go to a place where I might only hit 30 home runs as opposed to my 60. Yeah, it'd be better for me as a pitcher, but I'm going to be pretty bitching anywhere I go. How about I just take this? What's the difference? 10 million, 20 million, 30 million? I'm making 700. I don't care. My happiness is worth something.
Right.
You can ask Brandon Belt how happy he was to be a San Francisco Giant.
I talked to Brandon about that. Yeah, he had the most home runs robbed of any player in baseball.
And he can explain to you exactly how it happened. I mean, it's Matt Chapman wants to come here. That's great. He wants to play for his guy, Bob. That's great. He loves the Bay Area. That's great. It's not when you're competing with Los Angeles and Arizona, where most of these guys live, but they're not really playing that game. When you're competing with the Yankees and the biggest stage in Sunday Night Baseball every week, or Boston, which by proxy gets the same stuff. You're competing with the Cubs. You're not going up against the Rockies for these free agents. You're going up against the big time clubs who have historic winning track records, and you are playing in a ballpark that gives you a competitive disadvantage against all of them. And if the tiebreaker is going to come down to, oh, well, the Giants' money versus this team's money, guess what? They're going to say, I'm going to go to the place that's going to help my numbers more because I want another contract after this.
Right. I think the only way they can attract anybody is to overpay 10, if the best offer for Soto is $550, I think the Giants need to pay $650.
Correct. And then maybe he'll do it and maybe he won't. I mean, that's all it is. You don't need Buster Posey in the room to make that happen. You need a fat wallet. Now, if I'll say this, as it was alluded to yesterday, there's a little bit more of a streamlined scenario. There's a couple of things here. One, Farhan would never overpay, or anybody of Farhan's ilk would never overpay someone $100 million because, we need to get this one player. Because again, we go back to the Ohtani never played a playoff game for the Angels argument. One guy isn't going to with Trout. One guy isn't going to fix this. So why are we overpaying someone by $100 million? How many we could get 90 players for that off the Farhan system. What are we talking about here? Like, this isn't funny money. Like, that really hamstrings you in a luxury tax world. Two, it doesn't matter. It's not an issue of, he's going to bring in the big time free agents now. The big time free agent, we got Willy Adames. Great. You overpaid Willy Adames, and now you have a problem on your hands down the line. There is a cap here. And especially with an ownership group that wants to somewhat break even, which they more or less doubled down on. This thing just feels rudderless, man. It just feels rudderless. And charisma and charm and legacy doesn't mean shit. Not when it actually has to get down to brass tacks and get some work done. And the work in front of Buster Posey is immense. It is every direction, and it is piled higher than he can see. And credit to him for thinking he can take it on. There are going to be people around baseball, and he's finding this out right now, I'm certain of it, who say, I'm good. Yeah. I don't need that.
Yeah, why didn't the Yankees sign, make Derek Jeter or, Paul O'Neill in their front office, or the Dodgers make Fernando Valenzuela, or, when Clayton Kershaw retires, is he going to run the team? It's not going to happen.
No, the requirements of this job are, people don't have to like it, but it's the fact of the matter. You have to be of an Ivy League ilk. And, Buster is clearly a very sharp dude, but he went to Florida State, man. Like, I went to Missouri, so pretty much the same thing. But we're not talking about a dude with, an advanced degree in statistics or economics here. And again, people do not like to hear this, but it is the God's honest truth. Like, that is what is required these days. And
the game's changed. The game has changed. And I know there's a lot of talk of trying to go back to, I heard Bob Nightingale talk about this whole thing with Buster yesterday. Guys, go check out Bob Nightingale's article. Yeah. His interview on foul territory. Just check it out. He's saying he's got to hire a GM, and I don't think Buster can run this himself. And, the thing is are you going to get a quality GM? That's the key.
If they had hired Brandon Crawford for the job, same exact circumstance, more or less. I mean, really, like, what's Buster have that Brandon Crawford doesn't? Like, he played shortstop as opposed to catcher. He isn't part of the ownership group, which, how is that a positive for this organization? He didn't finish Matt Chapman's contract. That's it. Brandon Crawford's opinion carried serious weight with the Giants organization for years. People cared about what he had to say. And if they had hired Brandon Crawford for this job because Brandon Crawford said, give me the ball, would we be acting the same way? Or are we so far gone that nostalgia is all that matters? And if that's the case, then you deserve what's coming.
Yeah. And this whole thing right here, Billy Beane didn't start as the top.
Correct.
He worked his way up.
And by the way, was about to get fired until he found Paul DePodesta, who saved his ass.
Right.
And started all this. By the way, that was 2002, 2003. I don't know about you, but some stuff has changed in 20 years. That's just me, though.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but well, guys, we've broken it down. It's not a bash to say that Buster's sure to fail. We hope he succeeds, but we're
One
trying to
baseball
paint a
team.
picture of reality. And that's why I asked Dieter to come on, because I read the article and I was like, yeah, nobody's saying this. And everybody just buys into the fact that the Giants are going to be, contenders. Look, to stay consistent as a contender, you need a good farm system. Who's going to build that now?
Yeah.
Who's going to build that? So
we'll find out. I mean, the next couple of days and weeks are going to tell us everything we need to know, because if Buster can go in there and pull a rabbit out of his hat and get somebody who is qualified to be a number one, to be his number two, that speaks volumes.
Right.
That tells you that, hey, this guy understands what is required of this job, understands that he needs to insulate himself with great people. He's willing to shake things up. And now, hey, we're going to fire some people. We're going to bring some more people in. We got stuff. We have a philosophy. We have an idea. We're going for this thing. If he keeps Shelley on as the number two, hey, Ryan Vogelsong is now, our special assignment reporter for pitching in the minor league. And it's just more people that we've already heard from who don't really have any, experience in any of this. If it's just a bunch of, hey, remember some guys from 2012? Done. They're cooked. That said, there's a very real possibility that this all looks great, that he is just the man, that Buster Posey can do anything. Absolutely a possibility. But that's blind faith, and I don't do that shit.
Yeah, and I hear it. I get it. We would love to see it happen. It's possible. He does it, and we're rooting for it.
Yep.
But again, it's not what organizations typically do. I'm not going out tomorrow and applying for some job I've never had experience in. I'm going to go up to the top and say, hey, I want to be president. I saw you guys are are looking for a president. They're going to say, what's your experience? I said, well, I don't have any. You're going to laugh.
I really liked using your product. I'm very successful. That's me. That's ridiculous. But the conversation down.
So you're on KMBR tomorrow, or
7 to 9. Come yell at me there.
7 to 9. You guys go over there. Call
might be the last go for your boy.
I think the Giants do have a little say in that, don't they? KMBR.
For now.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, it's great having you on. We'll have you back on, definitely. We got football going, 49ers. We'll have to talk some of that sometime, because it's pretty amazing that the Giants were able to steal the news from the 49ers.
and the Warriors are in Hawaii, just laughing it all away. It's been a pleasure, and I felt that was very cathartic for me, so thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Appreciate that if you would. It helps the show get pushed out more. So hit that like and subscribe. If you're watching over on X, formerly Twitter, come on over to YouTube and just subscribe. Helps out the channel. Appreciate everybody. Thanks to Dieter. We will see you tomorrow night, guys, at 8:30. We'll cover a little NFL, and we'll talk about the Brewers and the Mets, who wins that game. So I think I'm going to root for Milwaukee, I guess. I don't know. That should be a fun game, though. I love playoff baseball.
It's the best.
Yep. All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.